Welcome to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. We've got a very special treat for you this evening. Our special guest tonight is none other than David Sancious. He's a piano player. He's played with Bruce Springsteen. In fact, he was an early member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band and contributed to the first 3 Springsteen albums. He's also played with the likes of Peter Gabriel, Eric Clapton, and Sting. And also he formed his band Tone in 1974 and has a brand new album coming out called Eyes Wide Open. Welcome to the program, David. Oops. Wrong one, I think. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Happy to have you on. Let's cut to the chase. We're going to kick off with this question. Tell me about your upbringing. Yeah. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up on the Jersey Shore in Belmar, New Jersey, about 8 miles from Asbury Park. I was actually born in Asbury Park, but when I was about 6 years old, we moved from Asbury Park to Belmar, and that's when I started, playing piano and studying piano.
Do you remember the early styles of music you started learning?
Well, I was the youngest of a family of 5, and I was sort of on the receiving end of everyone else's influences in addition to my own thing. So I heard a lot of stuff at once. I mean, I was instantly really sort of mesmerized by classical music. So I was hearing that and learning that every day. But at the same time, I was hearing jazz and rock and roll and and R&B. And I just come from a family of very distinct personalities. Each person had their very different, likes and dislikes. And then it was good for me because I just got exposed to like an ocean of possibilities.
Were your parents musicians as well?
Not professionally. They were both musical in their own way, but my mother was a school teacher by profession, and my father was an electronics engineer and worked for the government.
Pretty interesting. So how did you happen to become a pianist?
Again, just something I got exposed to, and I just naturally gravitated towards it. I suddenly was in a household where I had access to a piano because we had moved from one town to another, and a piano was included in the sale of the house. The people who sold the house had no interest in taking it with them. So suddenly, here I am, 6 years old, and I'm around this instrument all the time. And the amazing thing to me was that, unbeknownst to me, my mother actually played really, really well. And she had studied piano when she was younger. So I was just mesmerized and fascinated to watch her sit down and play. And it just sort of took over from there. It was just like a case of extreme magnetism between the instrument and me.
Do you remember some of your earliest influences as far as being a musician?
Ooh, well, earliest influences, yeah. Well, I mean, on the classical side, I was really attracted to composers, Excuse me. In other words, what I loved about music was the music itself. So, in other words, I loved the people who wrote music, like the great composers like Beethoven and Chopin, and I loved sort of expansive pieces of music, like symphonies and concertos and stuff. I was exposed to that at a very early age, and I appreciated what that's all about, and the form, the depth, and the scope of that. And again, at the same time, I love pop music. We had Top 40 radio, and the Temptations and the Supremes and the Beatles and the whole British invasion period, which I was very happy to be on the receiving end as well. And my father was a big fan of jazz singers and jazz artists. And my oldest brother was very attracted to avant-garde aspect of jazz, and was very much into people people like Rush on Rolling Kirk and other people I can't think of, and myself. Again, all these other influences. I also had the things that I liked. I was very much attracted to the music of John Coltrane, and also composers like Charles Ives and Aaron Copland. And at the same time, there were other great keyboards of the time like Herbie Hancock, Keith Jarrett. So basically just a flood of music, and I just sort of resonated with just about all of it.
We're going to talk a little bit more about your days with Bruce Springsteen, but you hold the distinction. Mm-hmm. You hold the distinction of being one of the earliest members of the E Street Band. Tell me a little bit about how the name E Street Band came to be.
I kind of, excuse me. I kind of remember that Bruce was wanting to call it something because we existed as a working unit on the Jersey Shore for quite a while without any kind of formal name. It was always who would be Bruce Springsteen, or we had a kind of about maybe 2 or 3 different names or versions of that band that happened. There was once a group called Dr. Zoom and the Sonic Boom. There was about like 9 of us or something. And then when it was mostly, it was either a quartet or a quintet. But it didn't have a formal thing. It was Bruce, but he wanted to call it something else. So we're coming home from I think it was a tour in Texas, and it was very early in the morning, and they were dropping me off. I was too young to drive a car, and so they were dropping me off, and we had this discussion about trying to come up with band names. And back in those days, it's still to this day, in the town of Belmar, these streets are numerical and alphabetical. So it would be, Ocean Avenue would be A Street, B Street, D Street, C Street, E Street. F Street was the main street, and then going the other way it would be, First Avenue, Second, 12th, 13th, 14th. It's just like a grid, a numerical grid. So for some reason, we're turning this corner, and he's about to drop me off at my house, and there were these little obelisks on the corner, and it was like a big white obelisk, and it said E Street on it. It was the corner of E Street and E Street and 11th Avenue. And we turned on to E Street, and he saw it, and it just, I think he kind of repeated it to himself a few times, E Street Band, something. It's very subtle. It wasn't no big explosion or anything, but I think it's something that had a rhythm to him that it just sounded good, like coming up with a good rhythm of a lyric in a song or something, where it just, it sounded good. And then, I don't know, a couple of days later, that's sort of announced that that's what it was going to be called.
Very, very cool. So we're gonna go ahead and segue into our first selection of the evening, and this is a song that you played on one of Bruce's 3 first records called The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. It's called Kitty's Back.
Right.
Explain to me how this song came about.
Well, again, you're going back to a different period to where Bruce was writing differently in those days. Like anyone else, if you back up on
technical difficulty, we're going to play Kitty's Back real quick. All right, we're back on. That was Kitty's Back with Bruce Springsteen. We're chatting with David Sancious tonight on the Piano Men. Technical difficulty on tonight, but
yeah.
How about that? So as you were saying earlier, we cut you off by accident mid-sentence. What were you going to say about the making of Kitty's Back?
Oh, I was just going to, I think you asked me a question about sort of how it came about, but yeah. I was going to just remark about how Bruce has gone through different writing styles in his career. In other words, the way he was writing music back in those days is very different from the way he writes today. Excuse me, even other periods before today. So that was just an example of, he was really kind of, it's almost like a West Side Story kind of thing. He was using the music to sort of tell these broader kind of stories, which again isn't different from what he's doing today, but it just has a different texture. But he was very open for that kind of R&B and jazzy kind of energy. That was one of my favorite songs to play live with him. We always had a great time doing it.
After you became a member of the E Street Band in the early 70s, can you tell us what it was like to work with the members of the band?
Well, it was easy because we were all from the same area and pretty much the same age, within a few years of each other. And what we had in common was just that we really wanted to, I think all of us, who sort of came through that, what we really did have in common was we were serious about doing it for life. It wasn't sort of like a hobby kind of thing. We were trying to make it, get as far as we could go with it, playing music and being in bands and, getting together and trying to do stuff. It was fun, and we had fun with it, but we were quite serious about it, trying to really go all the way with it.
In addition to you and Bruce Springsteen, the original E Street Band lineup consisted of the late Clarence Clemons, the late Danny Federici, Vinnie Mad Dog Lopez, and Gary W. Talent. A little known fact, a little Nashville connection since our show is based out here in Nashville, Tennessee. Gary W. Talent also played in Nashville for quite a bit. Can you tell me a little bit about your experiences with him in the band?
Well, Gary is actually a part of the reason that I actually ended up meeting Bruce in the first place, because on the Jersey Shore, Gary and I had somehow done a recording session for someone else. I don't remember the artist or whatever, but it was a recording session, and we were both on it, and we just sort of hit it off and talking. He said, asked me where I lived and where I was and everything. So he told me about this, Upstage, and I kind of knew about Upstage peripherally. I'd sort of been around, but I knew what it was and everything. So I used to go there on my own every now and then just to check it out. Mm-hmm. So sometime after this session that we'd done together, I was going up to Upstage one of these nights, and I'm walking up there, and there's Gary, and he's standing next to Bruce, and they're organizing a jam session for the second half of the evening. So I walk up the stairs, and Gary, I recognize each other, and Gary introduced me to Bruce and said, "Hey, this is my friend David, keyboard player," and Bruce asked me, "Do you want to sit in on this next thing we're about to do?" And I said, "Yeah," and that ended up being like about almost 4 hour, free floating jam session. It started at 1 midnight and ended about 5 in the morning.
In 1974, you left the E Street Band to form your own band, Tone. Could you elaborate and tell me a little bit about what circumstances led you to leave and start your own band?
Yeah, what happened was I had always been writing my own music, and it was something that Bruce was aware of from, as soon as we started working together. And, what happened, we were playing a run of shows at the Bottom Line in New York City. I think we played the Bottom Line like 5 nights in a row or something. Bands used to do that back then. It would be like a big showcase, situation. So we're playing in Bottom Line 5 nights in a row. And I was approached backstage in between one of the sets by an A&R person from a division of Columbia Records. Bruce was on Columbia. And I was approached by this A&R person from Epic Records, Tom Werman. And they had heard a demo tape that I had sent. I hadn't sent it, but I had made a demo tape when I lived in Richmond, Virginia for about 2 years or so. Because we all left New Jersey at one point because we couldn't work there anymore. It was sort of worn out of welcome. And I ended up in Richmond, Virginia, working in a recording studio, and they used to give me some free studio time. So I made this demo tape. So unbeknownst to me, Epic Records had heard it. So the guy purchased me and said, "We heard your tape and liked it a lot. are you still doing that? Are you still writing your own music? I said, yeah, absolutely. And they offered me basically some time to go and create a new video demo tape, because this one had been a couple years old. And I took them up on their offer, and it was sort of a bit of a long story, but a few months later, they offered me a contract.
Very neat. And you got to reunite with your former band members for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You were inducted as a member of the E Street Band in 2014.
Yeah.
How was that experience like?
Oh, man, that was sweet. That was sweet. And it was an amazing night, because not only was I a member of the E Street Band and performing, we had the rehearsals for the performance. I think we did 2 songs. I think we did Kitty's Back and something else. Maybe we did 3 songs. Anyway, so it was really a lot of activity around that. But also in the same evening, Peter Gabriel was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I've also been in Peter Gabriel's band for years, so I was also performing in the songs that he did in his induction. So I was like back and forth between the rehearsals for Bruce and doing that, and the setup for Peter Gabriel's thing as well. So it was like a double duty kind of night for me, but it was a real amazing night. It was so much fun.
That actually brings me to my next question. Over the years, you've worked with a who's who of artists in the music industry. Would you care to share a little bit, like an anecdote of the people, some of the people that you've worked with? We'll start with Peter Gabriel.
Well, like what had to be like an anecdote of like a funny story or something.
Yeah, like a memory.
Well, it's hard, when I think of here's the thing I'll say about it in general. It's a real privilege to get to play with so many, well-known and genius artists. I mean, I feel privileged to have been called by so many people to be a part of their music. But what I have to say on top of all that is that you get to know these people as human beings. And after so many years of working with Peter Gabriel and so many years of working with Sting and Bruce and others, you actually, apart from the professional relationship, you know these people and they know you, as a human being. And the beautiful thing I can say about all of them is that they are real people and they're really sweet, and they're just some of the, apart from the talent and the genius that they are, they're some of the kindest human beings you could ever meet. They're the kind of person that you'd want to live next door to, or that you would want as a friend, even if he was like, not a genius musician, if he was like a carpenter or a guy who drove a garbage truck or a fireman or something. They're the quality of human beings that you would really want to know.
You've also worked with Eric Clapton and Santana and Seal. Tell me a little bit about those experiences.
Oh, it's the same thing, man. Eric is just like, again, the privilege of working with someone who inspired me so much. Eric Clapton is one of the reasons I wanted to learn how to play the guitar. It's actually B.B. King and I'm going to say B.B. King, Eric Clapton, and Jimi Hendrix are the reasons that I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and to actually get to work with one of your someone who inspires you to do it was fantastic. And he's a lovely guy. Again, same kind of thing. He's a gentleman. Another thing about Eric too, apart from being a great guitar player, he's one of my favorite singers. It's the quality of his voice and the soulfulness with which he sings is really stunning. And he's a fantastic guitar player. He's a great singer. He's actually also a great songwriter. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, I believe. Was inducted some years ago. So, and again, behind the scenes, and, when you're on the stage, having dinner with him, or, sitting next to him on the airplane, going somewhere, he's a cool guy. And, again, a lovely person. You'd be happy to know him. Again, if he wasn't a great guitar player or very famous, you'd be just happy to know him as a person.
and you've got a new album out. We're going to talk about it right now. It's called Eyes Wide Open. Tell me a little bit about this album.
Open, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could tell me a little bit about your album. Your new album's called Eyes Wide Open. What was the process of making this record?
Well, the process was really, it started life as an instrumental album. And then as I was working on it, I did have some ideas from some earlier compositions. There were a few things that involved vocals that I wanted to sort of look at again and rearrange. And it really, as our society changed, I'm going to say from like sort of 2016 when we had our monumental election, and it sort of set us on the path right now. It seems like my original version of it sort of grew as events proceeded, and it became something more than just, a collection of instrumental pieces. But I thought suddenly that I wanted to say some things about the state of our society, and it involved actually saying it. So then I had these ideas for these few vocal songs, and it ended up being a statement of what's going on in our society and what we might do about it, how we might feel about it. And I know for sure that there's a lot of people out there who they may not have the ability to have the kind of musical skill that I have to express their feelings musically. But I know that in their hearts and their minds that they feel very much like I feel about the current state of affairs of our society and the need to seriously address what's going on and take hold and protect the best that we have in this country. This country was never, ever expressed in perfection. It's always an idea in search of being realized, but it's well worth preserving. And these are very important, very dangerous times. The project became very much about that. So there we are.
Well, music can make you feel all sorts of emotions, and right now we're going to play one of the selections from your new album called Middle of the Night. Can you elaborate on how this song came about and tell me what this song talks about and means to you?
This song came about, it's very personal and very real. There's a period in my life where things became sort of quite maybe physically and financially challenging, like so much of America. It's a song that the greater part of America, if you're not part of the 1% who's cruising along nicely, it's a song about a person who has concerns about how is he going to carry on his life, how is he going to pay his bills, how is he going to do all the things and meet all the responsibilities he has in his life. And it's the kind of situation where if you've ever had so much stress in your life and you've woken up or you can't sleep and it's the middle of the night and you're just trying to figure out how you're going to carry on, it's something that the greater part of America can resonate with. Whether you're famous, infamous, whether you drive a Tesla or you drive a tractor, this is the kind of energy that anyone can resonate with. And so it just came about one night. I was really stressed, and then I woke up, went about my business, and I got up and went into the studio, and the song just really poured out. It basically wrote itself.
Well, we're going to go ahead and play it. This is Middle of the Night by David Sancious. All right, here we go. This thing will stay on now. All right, you're tuned to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr talking with David Sancious. That was Middle of the Night. Tell me a little bit about who is playing on the song, on the record, I should say.
Well, the entire track is myself and Will Calhoun.
Okay.
I'm doing the vocals and the keyboards, and there's like a loop that's programmed, and it's Will Calhoun on percussion, like a drum kit, and very exotic percussion. He's an incredible player. It's like this song really is very unique to me because he did a thing where he overlaid this kind of like Mali and Moroccan Malian groove. Will is very studied in African percussion and Asian percussion and all things percussion. And he has this also sense where he's also super hip with electronics. You know, he's very deep and has a real presence in electronic music as well. So it's kind of unique, that kind of combination of talents from him. But he was able to come up with this groove that is it's just stunning. It's like something you never hear. It's hyper percussive and it's sort of Moroccan groove overlaid over a sort of hip hop, American hip hop groove. It's way special to me.
I guess you could say it's very world music influenced.
Yeah, big time. On steroids, man. On steroids. Just rock.
So we were talking a little bit earlier on the phone, and you mentioned, who are some of the people that have been playing on the whole album? The record is actually a sort of a collection of me and other percussionists. So Will Calhoun is on the album on that song. Vinny Colaiuta is on 2 songs on the album, and the other percussionist is a brilliant musician from Italy named Adriano Molinari that I worked with some years ago. Yeah. He's on a few songs. And there's another drummer from the New York area that I have a great relationship with as an improviser. We've done a lot of live shows as a duo. His name is Joe Bonadio, and he's on several songs. And that's it. The song consists of the ensemble is myself doing keyboards and guitars and vocals, and those drummers that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And there you go. In your opinion, how do you feel that the music business has changed in the last 20 years?
Oh, man, that's a broad question. Good grief. Well, the simple answer is how do I feel this change? It's changed dramatically. It's changed in ways to where the profit margin that once was there is no longer there. The entire structure whereby the people who create the music don't benefit financially as much as they once did. And that's now shifted to the shareholders and stockholders and the people who are on the streaming sites. And, of course, the music industry as a structure is completely different from when I got started. And we've got the technology. We've gone from vinyl disc to cassettes to CDs to CDs, DVDs, and now everything's digital and open. So it's vastly different, and it won't be changing back to anything resembling what it once was. That's really to be understood. What it was when I got started, and say when Bruce, people like Bruce and myself, what the music industry was like then and what it is now. That's not going to come back. But you simply, again, it's something that we make a life commitment to. So you're not going to get out of the music business because it isn't as hip as it once was in certain ways. Like, you're making a fraction of what you once used to make in terms of how much money your songs could make for you if they became successful. Because of streaming and the whole, that's a whole other conversation which we're not going to enter. Mm-hmm. But still, it's what you do. You make a commitment to do this for your life. So you adjust and you find other ways to work around or to augment what you do so that you carry on. At the end of the day, what's important, man, is that you're continuing. You keep making music, keep expressing yourself, and keep being, of some benefit to society. I really do think that it's the role of an artist to somehow reflect what's going on in society. And everyone's not such a stone cold, hard, serious artist. I'm into just like, hey, it's just time to have a party and let's be silly. And all music doesn't have to be so super serious and so socially conscious. I'm into that as well. generally, the thing that inspired me to be a musician and what music is about, and I see how powerful music can be and how it affects society, it's crucial to me to be somehow a reflection and be of some positive input to what's happening in society, today. And that's what I think this, for me, I think this record really does that in a big way for me.
I see you also have your own audio service. Would you care to elaborate about that? How that started up?
The audio service where we often, it's again, that's a reflection of being able to sort of adapt to times. A lot of musicians do it to where rather than getting on an airplane and flying somewhere and doing a recording session, you can now sort of send files directly to the artist and have your record done when another is leave home. That's sort of a thing that people have been doing for years. Another kind of adaptation, because again, studios aren't what they are, and the session work isn't what it once was, but it still goes on. In other ways, it depends on what level you're working on and who you're working with. But that's what it's about. That's an example of adapting to the new sort of digital society, and how that's one of the positive sides of the internet, where we can actually do projects without actually physically being together, but they can be of such a high quality that great things can happen.
So we'll go ahead and play this next selection from your new album. It's the title track to Eyes Wide Open. Tell me a little bit about what this song's about.
This song is this is an example of how not to lose anything. Okay, years ago, I had a break in a lot of touring, and I invited Adriano Molinari, this fantastic Italian drummer, who I worked with an artist named Zucchero. And we really hit it off musically, so I invited him to Woodstock, New York, where I was living, and I wanted to do like about 4 or 5 days of recording of some things that I had ready. Anyway, he shows up, he plays fantastically, goes away, boom, now I'm working on my own. And suddenly I realized that I liked his drumming more than I liked the song that I had presented him with. His drumming was so big, and the song was very kind of symmetrical. So I realized, okay, this is too good to lose. I can't lose. I really didn't even want to do the song anymore, but the drumming was too great. So I completely erased all of my tracks, and I kept his tracks, and then I just improvised completely a new thing, a new key, everything. I improvised to his tracks. I didn't even think about it. And so I came up with a whole new song because I wanted to keep the drumming. So I ended up coming with a new song just by improvising to the great drumming that he did. And then I overdubbed on those improvisations, and then I got this idea to have lyrics about it. And what the lyrics are about, this is in support of the people of Hong Kong who are fighting for their freedom, who are fighting against the Chinese communist government, who want to suppress them and make their lives less than they should be, less than they had. So the audio that you're hearing is like a street battle that's from a recent protest in Hong Kong. And you're going to hear chants. I think people are saying free Hong Kong. I'm not sure exactly what they're sure, but it's a very pro-Hong Kong statement, very anti-Chinese statement. And you're going to hear basically it's the sound of people running through the streets, protesting for their freedom. And you'll listen to the lyrics. I will speak for themselves in terms of what's going on politically.
All right, here's Eyes Wide Open by David Sancious. All right, those Eyes Wide Open. Really good song. It talks. You're welcome. Talks about a really good positive message, and hate is not okay. Love.
No. Hate is not only not okay, but the idea to suppress another human being for any reason, to suppress their freedom of movement and speech, and to be living under dictatorship, none of that is okay. Not whether whether you're brown or you're white or you're from Hong Kong, Your complexion and your ethnicity is notwithstanding. It is not okay to be suppressed. People must live in freedom and dignity, and they must be supported. For me, to support the people of Hong Kong, it's the same thing as like, people who supported the civil rights movement in the 60s. God, we're talking about just having your basic freedoms and dignities, allowed and not suppressed, and not to have anyone's boot on your neck, stopping you from being a free, dignified human being. They have to be supported, this whole situation in Hong Kong. I don't care whether you're a musician or a basketball player or a politician, whatever. It is morally the right thing to do. People need to stop equivocating and pussyfooting around it, good and well. That is the right thing all over the world, to support democracy and freedom and the dignity of every human being, regardless of what you look like or whatever you believe in religiously.
We got a little bit of time, about 7 minutes. So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to enter the music business as a musician?
Well, I would say that be sure that you love it. You have to love it so much that you don't consider it to be a job or a chore. Because first of all, it's something you never get there with music. Even the greatest virtuosos, they don't consider themselves to have done it. There's always this endless journey because you can always go deeper into it. So I would say that about anything. And my counsel about anyone at the job, whatever your job is, find something that you love to do, that you really enjoy. Find something that you lose yourself in, that you're so interested in doing that the sense of time disappears. Hours go by and you're just immersed in this thing, whether it's a musician or a carpenter or writing or painting. Find that thing that you can lose your so-called self in, and go with that. And that will give you the energy and the love to go through the hard times and the good times, because you'll have fantastic times, and there'll be times when things don't really work out. But if you love the thing you're doing, if you don't consider the thing you're doing to be a chore or a job, then you'll have a big adventure.
Are you going to be touring anytime soon for your new record?
I don't have tour plans for the new record. We're going to do a few things this year, but we're going to be doing a lot of publicity things. We're going to do some videos for a few songs. There'll be a video for the title track, also for Urban Psalm, and maybe one other. We're going to focus on that for a while, but I think towards the summertime or towards the end of the year, we'll do some live things. But right now, we're just really focusing on getting it out to people and making sure as many people hear it as possible.
And for my last question, where can people find your music?
They're going to find it on our site. You can get directed to my davidsancious.com, and it will have all the links to the new site. And I believe, when you spoke with John McCracken, he'll be able to give you all other links to the new site. But we are constructing a store specifically with this project and some other sort of archived and new projects. And at some point, we'll be making it available on the other platforms like Spotify and some other things.
Well, I'd love to keep talking with you more, David, but we are unfortunately out of time for the evening. But I want to thank you very much for coming on. It really means a lot.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
Thank you.
And we'll see you sometime in the future.
Thank you, man.
Keep rocking out.
Thanks so much for having me.
Always. We're gonna play Urban Psalm to close out the show. Thank you. This is Stanley Carr. I will see you next week for our Christmas special. I'll see you next week. Like the Facebook page at facebook.com/The Piano Men Radio Show.